It all started when I just finished the 7th grade in 1985. During that summer, we moved to the nicest house in the wealthiest neighborhood we ever had before because my parents had bought the house at a markdown price. Upon grabbing the very first box from the moving truck and stepping one pace inside our home, I stopped dead in my tracks. I felt a heaviness inside the house and could feel a darkness despite the large windows letting in lots of sunlight. My mom was coming through the front door and she asked me why I was just standing there. I said, "Mom, there's something wrong with this house."
There have been reports of strange creatures in the area.
Witnesses say they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
What is that? Welcome, doubters, naysayers, non-believers, and skeptics. Welcome to Paranormal, Fable, or Fact. I am Victor Trevino, and I'm joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Tammy.
We are your humble guides to stories of alleged hoaxes, unbelievable stories, and the overall strange.
Okay, this isn't gonna be a normal show because I decided that I wanted to go over my personal encounters. But before that, I think we need to talk about the prior show, the Rat Catcher. There's probably some people that are gonna listen to that show and go, "You guys beat a dead horse into the ground with you can't ignore evidence, can't ignore evidence." But I wanted to make a point on that. If someone thinks that before you make your final decision, no one alive today ever lived 700 or 800 years ago, scientifically speaking. So the only knowledge and information that we have all the way back then is what was either written down, what was carved in stone, or what was painted or drawn or whatever, art. That's the only reason we know how those days were. We have no idea how people lived back then. We can only go by what records we can find, and basically by deciding what the regions were and town chronicles and things of this nature. If we start picking and choosing what part of history we think is valid, then we're not being honest. We're not being true to what true history is. Because the only way we can tell what happened in that area in Germany is what was written down, what was drawn, and what was carved in stone. Just like everything else, it's like if you watch medieval movies or the Renaissance movies, the reason we know how those people used to dress is because of the tapestries, because of the scrolls that we found, the drawings, the paintings. That's the only reason. 400 years from now, if people just look at that and go, "Oh no, that doesn't make any sense," and they just dismiss it, well then, gone is the Renaissance, gone is the medieval times, We can't do that. We can't pick and choose what fits into our cute little box of science and logic. We have to look at what was written down and what was recorded, and otherwise we're not being honest with history. That was the point I wanted to make. So
Can't have a future without a past.
exactly.
I'm serious.
But like I was saying, this isn't going to be a normal show with the normal setup that we have. What is it? The outline?
Yeah, the outline and just how you like to do it, like a court thing.
Yeah, we're not going to have any red flags.
No red flags and no
inarguable truths. So, because this is just my personal, what happened to me. Just
storytelling time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you have some input.
Yeah, I probably might.
You're probably going to start snoozing over there if you want to sleep on me because if it doesn't interest you or it scares you, you don't want to hear it. But anyway, just a full disclosure, I don't talk about this often. These particular things. I've told people that I lived in a haunted house. I've told people about some stuff that happened there because I was comfortable doing so, like knocking on the walls. It used to follow us down the hall. Things that we saw. We had 3 chandeliers downstairs that I remember we heard this weird noise, like a whooshing sound, and we turned, and all 3 chandeliers were swinging in perfect unison. Stuff like that. Just weird stuff. Stuff would disappear and reappear like a few years later, sitting out in the open where you know you didn't leave it. Mm-hmm. Things like this. My mom lost earrings. I had a whole, and I'm not going to go into detail about where it happened, addresses, names, none of that stuff, because there's still people living in that house. I know it's sold several times since we moved out. And the person that lived there before us only lived there for like 18 months and sold it, like I said, way below market price. And we found out later why, of course. So I think it's necessary to allow our audience to know why I believe what I believe. And that's why I think this show is necessary, because Tammy and I discussed it and she thought maybe I should wait till after a few more episodes, but I think it's necessary to do it now, So,
yes.
Okay, the first one of the things that this entity, demon, I don't know what you would call it, but one of the things it would do, this thing that liked to scare us, was we used to have those metal hangers, you know, the metal clothes hangers?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would have some empty ones in my closet, and what it would do is it would make those cling together. I don't know how to describe it, like someone running their hand back and forth and making them cling and clang together, tinkling, tinkling, tinkling.
Oh, that's terrible.
And it would do it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'd turn on the light, run over there, open the closet. Of course, there's nothing in there. The closet was so narrow that my clothes could barely fit in there. There's no way. I don't even think, unless you moved the hangers out of the way, it was too small for me to even stand in there. That's how small it was short,
Okay, yeah.
So the clothes rod, what would you call
clothes
that?
Rod. Yeah.
Clothes rod?
Yeah, closet rod.
Was like a little lower than eye level to me.
Okay.
And then the top of the closet was only like a couple inches. There wasn't, and then above it was separate because it had there was storage above it, but it was so.
Like a cabinet?
Yeah, like a cabinet.
Okay.
Yeah, but open.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't attached.
Like an open shelf.
Yeah, or did it have doors? No, I can't remember. No, it had a shelf.
Okay.
It was open on top, but the shelf came out so far that I couldn't stand up in there because there wasn't enough space between the shelf and the door where my head would fit. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So I would have to squat down or hunker down in order to close the door, in order to sit in that closet, and the door would basically be almost right up against my knees. That's how narrow it was and how small it was.
Okay.
But I do remember it was taller, and I did have a shelf at the top because you could store stuff. I remember I had a bunch of stuff stored up there. But anyway, the main point was there was no room for someone to be in there doing that.
Okay.
Moving the hangers like that. So I knew it was something unseen, something paranormal. I had this dream. And it started off a weird dream. I was in this dark room, and in the distance, way in the distance, I could see this stairwell coming down, and this light was shining from the ceiling in the shape of a door. No railings on the stairwell, real narrow, but it was leading up to light. So I'm like, okay, everything else around me is pitch black. You're going to head toward the light, right?
Yeah.
So I start walking toward the light, and I realize there's stuff piled up that I can't see. To me, it sounded like it felt and sounded like when I was moving them out of my way to continue to the light, it felt like those old desks from elementary school, the metal ones.
Oh, yeah.
You remember those?
Yes.
With the wooden little desk in the front where your legs could sit underneath, Kind of like those. But they were piled up. Some of them were piled up high, so I couldn't move them. I'd have to go around them and stuff. But some of them were just a chair sitting there, or sometimes that desk, and I would have to slide them out of my way to keep going. So I'm going towards the side, and I'm like, what am I doing? What's going on? And all of a sudden I hear that what I thought at first was music. But it wasn't music, it was someone whispering. The whisper messed me up. And when we were watching... tripped me out is when we watched Harry Potter later, because the whisper that I heard was very similar to him speaking in parcel tongue. You remember how he was doing but the parcel tongue, he was speaking real slow, that, like that. This was like that, but it was lower, and what I mean by lower, like fainter, and it was like a higher pitch. It sounded like a child doing it. And it was real fast, like it was trying to talk to me, but I couldn't understand it, or it was some kind of foreign language. And I heard it behind me in this dream, and I'm like, oh crap, something's behind me. So I start freaking out, and I'm like hurrying towards this light, right? So I keep hearing it, and I'm pushing these desks out of my way. I'm throwing damn chairs, they're in my way. I'm tripping, I'm hitting my knees, I'm hitting my elbows, I'm bumping into stuff, and I'm just panicking. I'm sliding crap out of the way, I'm pushing stuff, and I'm just moving as fast as I can toward this light, and this thing is behind me, and it's getting closer, and I'm like, oh my god, it's gonna get me. So the light is getting to where I can kind of see behind me, or I thought, because when I turned around, it was pitch black back there. Couldn't see anything, so I'm like, oh, what is going on? It's a nightmare. That's what happens in nightmares. Doesn't make any sense. No. Well, anyway, I break into what I'm going to call the line of light, so that I'm in the light, and immediately I'm like, oh, I felt safer. I was like basking in this warmth, and I was so panicked and so upset that I like kind of stumbled and fell on the stairs. So I'm like kind of laying there, and I could hear it again. And I turn over on my back, and I look, and stepping into the light is this little girl holding a gigantic axe. She's got like black hair, a Moe haircut. Remember Moe from like the Three Stooges? A Moe bowl haircut, just like that. Not to be rude, but she was short and fat. There's no other way to describe it. And she was wearing a white and red striped shirt with like these blue coveralls over the front. She was maybe 11 or 12 years of age. So she was shorter than me, but stockier than me. Because it wasn't just fat, because the way she was holding the axe, that axe must have weighed 50 pounds. I mean, it was this massive. I drew it one time, on my friend's ceiling because she wanted to see what it looked like. She had this like glow in the dark ink, and I drew it up there on her ceiling, and she said she started having nightmares after it, so she had to go up there and rub it off and stuff. Yeah, it's a really weird looking axe, but it's massive. It's something kind of close to, again, Harry Potter, another reference in Harry Potter, something kind of close to when he was going to kill the, Buckbeak? That big axe that he had, something like that, but it didn't have that long of a handle.
Okay.
But it was something that a little girl, there's no way she should even be able to carry it.
I couldn't carry that.
Because it was so heavy looking.
Right.
But anyway, she's got this maniacal look on her face. Her eyes were just bugging, and she had this grin that went from all the way up to almost the edges of her ears. I mean, her whole, almost like a jack-o'-lantern looking thing, but it was a little girl.
Yeah.
And she's standing there. I didn't see her mouth move, but I heard again. And I'm like, oh, crap, because I thought it couldn't come into the light.
Yeah.
I was safe in the light.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But she took another step toward me, and I thought, oh, my God, she's going to get me. So I turn and start trying to scramble up the stairs, and that's when I woke up. My sheets are in tangles. I'm sweating. I'm swinging. I'm kicking, and I wake up violently. And I'm like, oh my God, it was a dream, right? So I start trying to breathe, trying to calm down, of course, because, I have to go to sleep. I had to go to school the next day, and I'm trying to calm myself down, and I hear the closet. Ding, 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 the hangers.
Oh,
it starts up, right? So I'm like, oh, and I'm getting angry.
Yeah.
I'm getting angry. So I'm like, oh man, not tonight. Don't do this. I didn't know at the time that the nightmares were part of it, I think, because a lot of it started with nightmares for me. I don't know about my family, and I'm sure that there's probably stories that happened to them that they never shared with me because
It was too much.
Too much, right? Because there's, like I said, there's stories that I never shared with them. So
it's too much.
So I kick my blankets off, get out of bed, and I'm facing the closet, and I'm thinking, go away. I don't want to deal with you tonight. And I heard the right in the bedroom, right in front of me. I mean, like someone was right in my face.
Yeah.
And so I thought, for some reason, now I'm getting all, it's still messing with me, but then for some reason I got angrier. I got really angry because I'm like, it's still messing with me. Blankety blank, I'm cussing it out and I'm thinking in my head, but then I start mouthing it, I'm whispering it to it. You make yourself physical. I was about 15 or 16 at the time. I was playing football, I was working out, good shape, I was strong. I was pretty mean, pretty tough. Wasn't afraid of anybody. And I'm telling this thing, make yourself physical, and I will beat the crap. Make yourself a physical little girl, like you were in my dream, and I will kick the crap out of you, right? That's what I'm thinking. And I'm telling it this stuff. I will gouge your eyes out. I will stomp you. I will do all these things to you. So I feel this like little slap on my mouth, like a mom would do to her kid when he says a bad word, that little warning, little cuff, soft little slap on the lips, like, oh, don't say that,
Yeah.
And it did that to me. And then I really lost it. And I started
really angry.
I just started really going, I'm standing in my underwear, in my boxer briefs, and I'm cussing this thing out. I'm to you. No good. I don't want to cuss and say what I was saying, but I was just letting loose, man. I was giving it every dirty word and cuss I could think of. I'm cursing and everything. And it hit me.
It hit you?
Pow! Open-handed, right to my face. And right in the face. I felt the palm, the fingers, my ear rang. I saw a flash of light, go off in my head. My teeth rattled.
Ooh.
I mean, it hit me so hard that I staggered. I almost went down. I staggered back like 3 feet and barely held my balance. I could feel the heat immediately on the side of my face. Like I said, my ear was ringing, and I guess my cheek had cut into my teeth because there was just blood running out of my mouth. Upon that happening, all of the anger was immediately transformed into fear, because I realized I never saw the attack coming. How do you fight something you can't see? It could hit me anywhere.
Scary.
It could gouge my eyes.
Yeah.
It could blind me. It could punch me in the jewels. I could be sleeping and it could tear at my lips.
Yeah, hurt you.
Tear one of my ears off.
Yeah, drastically.
Rip your hair out. I mean, all that realization, like, oh my God, I have no defense against this thing. I can't see it.
Mm.
It's like my mind went blank because I was just in a panic. All I remember is I grabbed the sheets off my bed, threw them over my head, and kind of like waddled out of the room because I put myself like in a part fetal position trying to protect myself because I thought it was going to hit me again.
Yeah.
Threw open my door, went down the hall in complete darkness, didn't turn on any lights, and burst into my parents' room. Okay, now my dad was a Vietnam vet. Well, my dad's still a Vietnam vet.
Yes.
He always kept the door locked, so I have no idea how I got in the room. No idea. I don't know if the door opened. I don't know if it's locked. I broke the door. I don't know. But I went right into the room, and my dad switched in one fluid movement. My dad was turning on the lamp, flying through the air, and coming around the bed to clobber me.
Yeah.
I could see it on his face that like I was giving him flashbacks of Vietnam or something because he was getting ready to kill me.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there.
You cannot wake up a Vietnam vet like that.
I'm babbling. I'm trying to...
Yeah.
And he said I looked pale. I was just completely pale. And immediately my dad stopped in front of me. And my mom, of course, Mijo, what's wrong? What's wrong, Mijo? Roberto, he's shaking,
Yeah.
And I was trembling. And she said, come sit down. And my dad's looking at me, and he kind of said it more to my mom than to himself. He said his mouth's bleeding. So my dad stormed down the hall to my room.
Right.
Threw open all the lights on.
He thinks somebody hurt you.
He's in there. He was gone for quite a while. I don't know if he was cussing it out or I don't know what he was doing, but I remember my mom sat me down and she said, "What happened to me, Ho?" And I couldn't tell her. I couldn't talk. And she could see, she said my face was swollen and my mouth was bleeding. So she went downstairs, got me, warmed up some milk, and because that's what they used to do back then, and she brought up a glass of warm milk and told me to drink it. So I'm drinking this milk, and that's when I told him what happened, that it hit me. And my dad said, "Well, what did you do?" I said I was cussing it out. It made me mad because it scared me. And that was the last time I challenged it. That was the last time. When this first happened, we had only been in the house for a few years. I remember that. But I guess I just kept sleeping and just kept doing my thing and just didn't do anything to provoke it after that.
Okay.
Because don't tell me about sleep paralysis and all this kind of crap, because I was wide awake. I was on my feet. I was facing it.
Yeah.
It hit me. I was bleeding. I didn't make the stuff up. I didn't imagine it. Okay, I am not, and Tammy's right here. She knows. I'm not an emotional person. I don't get choked up. I don't easily I'm not afraid of anything. It takes a lot to scare me. But when I talk about this stuff, it's like it all comes to the surface, and I'm getting way more emotional than I'm emotional?
Emotional. You're emotional.
I'm getting way more emotional about it than I thought I was. And if I do start sounding nasally and I'm sniffling and stuff, I apologize, but I didn't think I was going to get this affected by relating these stories. So I just want to apologize to the audience.
I'm sure the Fulfers will forgive you.
The Fulfers?
Yeah, Fable or Fact. Our audience. Fulfers.
Fulfers?
Yeah.
Fulfers. I like that. Okay, we can go with that.
Okay.
Heretofore, henceforth, our audience shall be known as Fulfers.
Fulfers.
Hopefully they're not offended by that. What do you mean, I'm a Fulfer? Go Fulf yourself. Anyway, yeah, we're still trying to keep it lighthearted because trying to get me in a better mood and stuff. But I want to go on to the next story, and this involved me and my oldest brother. And so I have 3 brothers, and we all lived in this house. But anyway, it must have happened on a Saturday night or Friday night, because I believe my grandparents were coming the next day, and I'll go into that later as I go on with the story. The downstairs of this house, and I feel this is important for people to understand the floor plan. In fact, if we get a website, I want to put a floor plan, a basic floor plan of what it looked like downstairs so that people could see what I'm talking about. Anyway, it was what I call a circular house. And that is, there was a center wall, and basically it was an open floor plan. So if you went along that wall, the center wall, you could basically visit every single room downstairs. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you walk in the front door, there was a raised landing and a vaulted ceiling, and to your right would be the hall closet, or the entry closet, and then to your left was a railing, and it appeared like the living room was sunken, but it wasn't. It was just the landing was like 3 feet higher, right?
Okay.
And it was hollow when you walked on it, so it made like a distinctive sound. But anyway, take a couple steps forward. On your right now would be the stairs going upstairs, and again to your left, still railing, still living room. Take a couple steps forward, you're going to be looking at that center wall. Okay. And on your right was a set of little stairs, like 2 or 3 steps. And then you go down the hall. And down that hall on your right would be the under the stairs bathroom. It was like a half bath.
Okay.
Because the stairs were right there, remember? But it was a closed hall.
Yeah.
If you keep walking forward, then you, on your right again, would be right past the bathroom was the garage door. And to your, kind of like to your left and forward of you would be the den with the fireplace. And then if you turn left, you'd be looking at the den. And there was a carpet line that separated the den, because again, it was an open floor plan. There was a carpet line that separated the den and the breakfast nook. You walk around that center wall into the breakfast nook, and straight ahead, there was an island coming out from the right, and cabinets on your left. Like, I've never seen cabinets like this in any other house. They went from the floor all the way to the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
Cabinet, like built-in
like a
cabinet.
pantry.
Yeah, but
Like the 1980s pantry. Yeah.
basically, and then it had the bright fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
And when you first rounded that corner into the breakfast nook, there was like a 3 set of lights there, and there were the controlled where you could turn the kitchen lights on that from there or from
The other entrance.
the other end, because if you walked through the kitchen, there was an archway, and you walked into the dining room.
Okay.
Then you turn left, and you're facing the living room. Take a couple steps forward, and now there's the stairs to your left, the other set of stairs on the other side of the center wall going up toward the landing.
Oh, okay.
And you made a complete circle of downstairs at that point.
Okay.
So, and I feel this is necessary because of how
story that you're
yes. So on that carpet line dividing the breakfast nook and the den, my parents had put a couch to further separate the rooms.
Right.
And we had our TV in that little corner, the back corner of the house, and that's where the TV was.
Okay.
So you sat on the couch, your back was to the kitchen and the breakfast nook, basically. So my mom wanted cigarettes. She wanted my oldest brother was the only one that could drive because I was like 15 or 16 at the time, so he would have been about 19.
And old enough to get cigarettes.
And old enough to buy cigarettes, yes. So my mom wanted him to go get cigarettes for her. So my brother starts complaining, why do I gotta go, blah, 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 and he's kind of arguing. My mom's not getting angry. She's telling him, go ahead, go on, mijo, do it for me, I really want him, blah, 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 blah. I'm tired, I don't want to go, and everything. So my brother goes, well, why doesn't he go with me? And I'm like, what? What? He's like, yeah, why don't you come with me? You're just sitting there with your thumb in your butt or whatever. You're just messing around anyway. Why don't you come with me? So I'm like, oh, man, my mom, mijo, go with him, keep him company. I'm like, oh, man. So I get up. So me and my brother are kind of bickering back and forth because I'm like, you jerk, what are you doing volunteering me? Hey, you're just sitting there anyway, So we're going down the hall. It must have been in the fall or in the wintertime because I remember we were putting on our jackets. When you went out of the den down that hall, that would have been on the left. The bathroom under the stairs would be on your left. And along that wall, my mom had I don't even think it was hers. I think it was built into the house, but there were like little wooden pegs coming out of the wall.
Hooks.
Like for coats.
Yeah,
so that's where we kept our coats.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that belonged to my mom or it came with the house. I think it came with the house.
Probably. That sounds about the style of that house back then.
And it was different. The wall was white, but it was like wood, I remember. But anyway, so we're grabbing our jackets. We're walking down the hall. We go up the 2 steps onto the landing. We're turning towards the front door, and I hear a distinctive sound. This if anyone's ever had a cat inside the house, and the cat gets startled, and it takes off running, and the claws kind of dig into the carpet when it first starts running, and it makes that kind of like sound. I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing it right.
Pulling the carpet.
It's pulling at the carpet with its claws. That's the sound I heard. So my arm was up in the air because I was putting my arm in my jacket, and I turned to my right and looked down over the railing. Now, before I still have to explain some stuff. None of the lights in the front of the house were on.
Okay.
Only the kitchen light was on and the light in the den.
Okay.
So there was light shining down the hall that we were walking down, and there was light shining through the archway of the kitchen. Now, the kitchen lights were bright. There were those bright fluorescent lights that they used to have, the sunken ceiling with the bright fluorescent bars. So, I mean, this light's just streaming out of the archway. So you could see well enough. You didn't have to turn on any lights, right? But it was dim. It was dim.
Okay.
So I look to my right, over the railing, down, and something ran from underneath the coffee table and was running towards the archway. It was weird. When I first initially saw it, was like time slowed down because it was like slow motion. It was the weirdest thing. They do it in movies. Never happened to me before in my life. Never happened to me since. But as I'm turning, I can see this thing running. Actually, I know it was a humanoid because it was on 2 legs, no doubt about it. And as I'm turning and looking at it, it was about 1 foot tall. It had a big bulbous head, a head way too big for its body. Way too big for its body. And I could see the little arms as it was making, like when you run, you pump your arms, and I could see its knees coming up. I mean, this thing was moving. It was like rat quick. Like a rat. It just scurried. And so I'm like having to turn to follow it because it's running behind us, basically, because we're facing toward the front door. So I'm kind of like looking over my shoulder at it, and ran towards the archway. So I'm thinking to myself, it's going to step into the light and I'm going to get a good look at it, right?
Yeah.
That thought just popped into my head for some reason. And as it's running, an interesting fact is we never really talk about it all the time, but without fail, we always never messed up any of the details. We both remember it crystal clear. The only thing that was kind of off this last time I talked to him about it, which was about 3 months ago?
About a month ago.
He remembers us being in the hall and seeing it, but I think he's forgetting the layout, because if we were standing down in the hall, we would have been 3 feet lower than we were on the landing, and we wouldn't have been able to see the living room floor from the landing, because the landing would have been in the way. Because this thing, I mean, the coffee table, there was just a little couch there, and then the coffee table was only like a foot and a half away from the couch. You know how close you have stuff like that. So if I would have hopped over the railing where this thing ran out, I probably could have landed right on top of it. I mean, it was 4.5 feet away, and I'm looking down at it. So there was no mistake what I was looking at. It was right there, practically right within, like, almost reaching distance of me. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, it never stepped into the light. Because, and this is why I think my grandparents were visiting the next day, because my mom used to collect all the aluminum cans, the empty aluminum cans for my grandfather, because my grandfather was retired and that's something he liked to do. So as it ran toward the archway, it brushed against that bag of empty aluminum cans. You know what that sounds like when you touch something. It makes that little tunk sound. So it brushed against it and kind of rounded the corner by brushing against that bag, so it never stepped in the light, which irritates the crap out of me. It's almost like it didn't want to be seen. But another thing about it, it had a bubble around it. My brother and I think it was some kind of force field. I don't know how else to describe it, but you couldn't see it. There was nothing visible around this thing. The only thing, as it ran in a bubble shape, everything that it ran past was distorted. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it was in a glass ball that was floating with it.
Okay.
So even the carpet where its feet were, everything was distorted as it passed by it, because it ran right by the dining room table, right by the chair legs and the table. So all of that was warped and out of focus because this kind of like looking at a crazy mirror, and everything's all warped and stuff like that. So it had some kind of field around it. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what it was. Brushes against the bag. I turned to my brother, Mr. Skeptic, Mr. Always playing down everything that we saw in that house, and I said, "Now you can't tell me you didn't see that, right?" So he's already taken off running down the hallway behind us, and I realized why. It's because it was running through the kitchen right towards my mom, who was sitting on the couch. It's running right towards my mom, and she had her back to it. So I thought, oh crap. So like I said, I was athletic, I was in shape. I do like a little couple bounds, and I'm like in the archway.
Yeah, instantly you and your brothers are going to protect your mom.
Right. We went into defensive mode.
Right.
So I get to the archway, my brother's already coming around the other end of the wall, through the den, coming into the kitchen, into the breakfast nook, and we're looking at each other. And he's doing this, and I'm like, where'd it go? We're doing the side, to each other with the palms up, like, well, where did it go?
Where did it go?
And he's like doing this because I guess he didn't want to upset my mom or something. I don't know. And I didn't either, because I didn't say anything either. So we start tearing apart the kitchen. We're opening cabinets, pulling out drawers. We actually slid the refrigerator.
Mother's
kitchen? Oh yeah. Oh. So we're sliding the refrigerator. My mom's like, "What are you boys doing?" And
That's not what she said.
No. She was calm at the first.
Oh, was she?
She was. Because my mom's a neat freak. I mean, a neat freak. So that's why I say she would have never left that bag of empty aluminum cans there unless my grandparents were coming the very next day. They had to have been. Anyway, we're actually grabbing the stove. We're going to pull it to see if it was behind there. But we opened everything. We were looking everywhere. And my mom comes in the kitchen. Now she's mad because we're making a mess. She said, "What are you boys doing?"
Yeah.
You know, and we said, "Mom, something just ran in here." "What? Something just ran in? We just saw it." And my mom's like, "Well, what?" "We don't know. It looked like a little man." She's like, "What?" "We just saw a little man run through the, and I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we saw. And that's basically where it ended. I've never seen anything like that since. I've never even heard of anything like that since. I've been listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, reading books, going to websites. I go to everything. I look up books. I've checked books out of library. You've been there with me when I do it. I actually buy secondhand books that are on mythology and stuff because I'm so interested in this stuff, and I've never found anything to describe it except for this one story, and I don't remember which podcast it was, and I kicked myself in the butt, but he described basically what we saw, this little foot-tall thing with a big head, but he only saw the silhouette of it because it passed by the open bedroom door, and he saw it on the wall because he was sleeping on the floor because his brother was scared. I don't remember what podcast it was. I don't remember, but anyway, since then, we've looked, I finally found a creature that matches some of the descriptions of what was going on in that house. It's called a boggart. Now, I know you're going to pop in your head, "Oh, Harry Potter, or the ghost that can change into your feet." No, that's not what a boggart is. That's Harry Potter folklore. That has nothing to do with the real creature. The real creature is this little, basically ugly little man that's about a foot tall with a big head, and it does all kinds of stuff around the house. And it's said to follow the family, but we never had anything else other than everything happened in that house. We've never had any other paranormal activity in a house since then. So I don't know. That's what we think it was.
Yeah.
I know there's probably people rolling their eyes and going, "Yeah, whatever, buddy. How much were you drinking?" But no, that's what we saw. And my brother and I still remember to this day. That was over 40 years ago.
Over 30 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
And I still remember it like it was yesterday. And it made two distinctive sounds. When it first took off, its nails digging in the carpet, and when it brushed against that bag of aluminum cans. It wasn't shadow play. It wasn't a figment of our imagination. It wasn't a ghost or shadow. You know what I mean? It was solid because it was interacting with our reality. It was there. But as soon as it rounded the corner, somehow it was just gone. It poofed away
Into the light.
Yeah, it just disappeared. I don't know of any natural creature. One of my friends said, "Well, how do you know it wasn't a cat?" "Well, because you Nimrod, we didn't have a cat. You don't think I'm gonna know it's my cat?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just asking." I said, "Come on, man, really? It was a cat. Yeah, that's what it was. On two legs, no less." So you have any questions, baby?
No, I've heard these stories for the last few years, and sometimes you and your family's stories get a little scary, and because of my background, my family background, we have a lot of Scandinavian and Nordic folklore, and I just think of little things that are like, when you guys think about the creatures, I just think of those in my head, so it'll make me happy instead of scared.
Wow. Okay.
That's just me.
Okay, I think I'm ready to go into the third story.
Okay.
And these three particular stories is what changed everything for me.
Yeah.
It changed everything. It completely
changed your outlook on a lot.
On life.
Yeah.
It challenged my views on religion. It definitely challenged my views on science and medicine and the what I call academia, the wizards of smart, the people that tell us everything and don't know what they're, in my opinion, most of them don't know what they're talking about. This is the reason I wanted to make the podcast, to challenge this stuff, because I think there's too much effort going on today to dismiss this stuff, to hide it, to not talk about it. And I think it's irresponsible for academia to act like this, to be so dismissive, like we were saying before, the bear, the owl, the coyote with mange, the sandhill crane, swamp gas, all these dismissive explanations for what happened, knowing full well that something traumatic happened to the people that were involved in these cases. So I want to go into my third and final story that I want to share. And this is the one that, well, all of them scared the crap out of me, but this one really scared the crap out of me. And it traumatized me. My bedroom upstairs had a street-facing window, and we were the second house down from the top of the cul-de-sac. So it's kind of like on a hill. You went up the hill and went around the cul-de-sac, then you came back down. What?
You already said this.
No.
Oh.
Remember, I deleted it.
So at the beginning of this, when we first started recording this show, Victor was already talking about this story. He already did it twice, so forgive me. I thought he had already given the description of the room. So now I'm going to give the story back to Victor. My bad.
Yeah, it was really weird. I was trying to tell the story of the dream with the girl with the axe, and I kept going back to the story for some reason. I don't know why. I think out of all of them, this is the one that traumatized me the most and affected me for the rest of my life the most. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But it was really weird. That's why Tammy thought that I had already recorded this part. But anyway, the house was only about 2 years old, like I said, so the light at the top of the cul-de-sac was really bright. So even my room had Venetian blinds, but even with the blinds completely closed, it was still pretty bright in my room. Plus, my room was bright. It had light beige carpet, white walls, and then it had those popcorn ceilings. You remember those, Bibi?
Yes, I hate those.
Yeah, I don't know why they stopped doing. Why did they stop doing them?
Because it's ugly.
Okay.
Okay.
But that meant with the light coming in through that window, my room was really bright, is the point. Now, I had moved out at the time. I think I was about 18 or 19 when this happened. So this is kind of later. This is right before I moved out of the house because I was joining the military. What happened is I moved out with my girlfriend at the time, ex-wife now, but she was my girlfriend at the time. We moved down to San Diego for about 7 months together. And we decided I was going to join the military, the U.S. Army. So my parents, upon hearing this, said, hey, why don't you stay with us until you leave for boot camp? And then she could stay with us because we wound up going up to Vegas and getting married. So they said, you guys can live here while you wait to go on to the military. Because I was put on what was called the delayed entry program for it was 4 months or something. So we wound up staying there for 4 months. But anyway, I only had a single in my room. So we never were on the bed together unless we were, getting all intimate or whatever. But we usually didn't sleep on the bed together because it was too small. We'd waking each other up and stuff. So I usually just slept on the floor. So I'm on the floor. I'm out. I'm sleeping. I'm having this crazy dream where I was kind of floating in the water, like this dark water. And I'm on my back and I'm looking up at this starlight night, except there was no stars. It was just the moon. The moon was so zoomed in that I could see all of the little ridges, all these little cracks and the depressions on all the little rocks and stuff. I mean, it was all the details.
Craters.
The craters,
Yeah,
yes.
that's what it is.
You
Not
said
crates.
crates?
My bad.
Yeah, I just kept right on talking when you said crates. I don't know why.
Because you know me.
Anyway, so I can see all this detail. And I'm just tripping out on it. I'm like, wow. And I'm just relaxing. I'm looking at this beautiful moon. And I dipped under the water all of a sudden. When I dipped under the water, the moon completely vanished. The water was like ink. I don't know how else to describe it. Because normally you would be able to see the moon through the water, right? Because water's clear.
Yeah, water's clear.
But no, as soon as I dipped under, it was completely black. And I come up, I'm kind of coughing and sputtering a little bit. And because now my feet are down below me in the water, or whatever it was. I'm trying to kind of lean back and get my feet up level.
Yeah.
To float again so I could see up again, right?
Yeah.
I dipped down again. Lower this time. Longer this time. And now I really come up sputtering. So then I start to panic a little bit because I'm looking around and as far as I can see, it's just blackness. There's nothing around. I don't see a shore. I don't see anywhere to swim to get out of this water that I keep getting dunked under because it was like something was either pulling me or pushing me under the surface of the water. It felt more like I was being pushed down into the water.
Yeah.
And something was holding me under the water. So every time I went under, I was having to struggle and it kept doing it. So I'm this nice, calm, tranquil dream all of a sudden became like this nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So I realize as I'm kicking and struggling, I'm starting to wake up. And I'm waking up, and you know how when you first wake up, it's hard to move, kind of?
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of drowsy and kind of... But the first thing I realized is something was on my chest, which is just nuts, right? That's not how you're supposed to wake up. But it was leaned over me. It was about the size of a 4-year-old child. And it was hunched over me. And it had both of its hands flat, and it was leaning forward over my head and pressing down on my throat, choking me, basically, cutting off the air to my brain. But flat-palmed. It wasn't squeezing, it was pushing. And I think, in retrospect, at the time I thought it was because I was half asleep while I was so drowsy. I think the reason I was so groggy is because I was oxygen deprived. Because I was still coughing and I was still gasping for air as I sat. My first initial reaction was to get it off of me.
Yeah.
Because whatever it was a shadow. A jet black shadow that stood out so contrast to my bright room, especially the popcorn ceiling. And I realized it was the popcorn ceiling that was the moon in my dream, and this thing's head as it leaned over me was cutting the light from the ceiling, so all I was seeing was blackness, and the dipping below the water was this thing pressing on my throat. So I grabbed it. It had both of its, like I said, it had both of its hands flat palmed on top of each other, pressing down on my throat, and I grabbed both. It was so skinny and small, like almost skeletal, that both of its wrists fit in my hand. And I kind of leaned to my left and kind of shoved, and it kind of did this weird roll off of me. And I'm sitting up, I'm turning, I'm looking at it, I'm coughing, and it's on my carpet like a foot or two from me. I'm trying to figure out what it is. There was a bunch of things wrong with it right off the bat that I could see. The first thing that I registered was the hair of this thing. It had, the only thing I can equate it to was, you remember those little troll toys?
Oh, yeah.
Stuck them on the end of your pencil?
Yeah.
And you could smooth the hair, and then when you
Yeah.
did on the pencil, the hair would get all wild?
Yeah, get wild.
That kind of wild,
Hair
spiky hair.
Oh, wow.
It was like that. But, of course, I couldn't see any details. I could just see the outline of it. So it could have been a hat. I don't know.
Right.
I just saw these long spikes sticking off where it looked like hair. And it was in a weird position. It was crouched all the way down so that its knees were past its head and its shoulders. And it had its hands up above its head, like in this defensive position, like it thought I was going to swing at it or something. Mm-hmm. But it's still looking at me out of the corner of its eye, even though I couldn't see the corner of its eye because I couldn't see its face. It was just a silhouette. The next thing that I saw that was crazy is this protrusion from where its face should have been. I don't know if it was a nose or a beak, but it was about the size of a large banana sticking out of this thing's face. Now remember, it's kind of small, so it looked comical, almost like this big, long, hooked either nose or beak. I don't know which one, because again, I could just see the outline of it. And then the other thing was the hands and the feet were comically oversized, like strange, bizarre, sickening kind of oversized. Because the only thing I can equate it to is like if you go to the ball games and people have those foam fingers, number one, and their arm looks grotesquely small compared to that big foam finger. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked, but its feet too. And it had these like nasty, gnarled, squared off nails because the hands were so large. This thing was like the size of a 4-year-old, and both of its hands and its feet were larger than mine. And it had these spindly little tiny, like I said, its wrists were so small, it fit both of them in my hand. So just imagine the large hand on the end of that. It just looked weird. It was so vile, this thing. It was just so distorted and so disfigured and so not right, because the feet too, they were just like these long, it made it look almost like its feet were swollen. But it wasn't that, they were just so oversized, because they were skeletal too. Its fingers and its toes, I could see them, because I was looking down at it, and it was within, like I said, striking distance. So I'm still trying to catch my breath, and I'm looking at the body of this thing. It didn't have an abdomen like a human would. it just looked like a spine, but not like an exposed spine, like it was so skeletal that the skin was just, there was no innards where our innards would be. So it was just like this weird bend, like a question mark curl where it was leaned forward. It was just, but the other thing that was really weird about it is that where the upper body would have been, and for some reason I immediately thought it was like an old woman. That's the image I had. It was like an old woman. I don't know why, because this thing was so freaky looking. Where it's where a woman's breasts would be, there was like this tattered cloth or rags or something hanging down. It might have been its skin, I don't know, or it might have been hair. Mm-hmm. But to me it looked like tattered clothing. And the same thing where its waist, where its hip bones were, even though it was just a skeletal thing, where the hip bones were, there was like something hanging down over its growing area, and it's, you know, in between. It's like almost like a tattered loincloth. Again, it could have been hair. I don't know. I don't know. Because I couldn't see any details. This thing was jet black. And as I turned toward it, and I'm looking right at it, it did like this defensive thing. Because remember, it had its hands up, and it was kind of looking at me from the side, and it did this weird like little hop, sideways hop away from me. Like 3 or 4 little hops away from me. And as it did it, it made this god-awful sound. It sounded like kind of something like as it hopped. And I'm looking at it, and it's sitting there, it's right in front of me. My brain is doing backflips in my skull, because I've never seen anything like this. Never even imagined anything like this. And I got angry. I got really angry because I realized this freaky, grotesque thing just tried to kill me. It just tried to snuff me out of my sleep. Yeah. Here I am minding my own business. What right did it have to come up to me? What did I do to it? I didn't do anything to it. I didn't even know what it was. So I'm getting mad. And I'm looking at this thing. Here I am gasping for air and stuff, and this thing's sitting there like, oh, don't hurt me. And I'm like, you little, I'm getting like, I'm getting angry at this thing. So I don't know why I did this. I've looked in retrospect many times. I have no idea why I did this, but I turned to face it, but I got on my knees. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't get to my feet. Maybe because on my knees it was
same size,
closer to my level. Yeah. I don't know why I did it, but I got to my knees, and as soon as I did that, it froze. It just froze, like somebody pressing a pause button. It just stopped all movement, froze, and it dissipated. And what I mean by dissipated is it went from something solid to like a gas, like these little dots of shadow swirling around. And it just one by one, and it made a sound when it did it. It sounded like somebody opening a can of soda or something. It's like or like the old Star Treks where the doors were open. You hear that, the air escape. That's what it sounded like. It went, and it just turned into like these little dots of shadow, and they kind of swirled around a little bit, and then it was just gone. It just one by one, the little spots disappeared, and it was gone. It was there 1 minute, and then it was gone. Years later. The only thing I can equate it to is we went to this salty lake. It's called Mono Lake. It's up north in Northern California. And they have these small little brine flies that just swarm in packs on the side of this lake, drinking the brine out of this lake, and then they're breeding and mating and all kinds of stuff. When you go over there and you wave your hand over them, they kind of like they do this like lazy fly up into the air, and they kind of swirl around a little bit, and then just all of a sudden the swarm's gone because they land one by one back down there, and they're buzzing around, and then just they're gone because they land. That's the only thing that comes even close to what this thing did. So as soon as it disappeared, again, all the questions that I talked about earlier, did I just see that? Was I dreaming? I know I wasn't dreaming. I thought, because my throat, I could still feel the pressure of its body. It probably weighed about 30 pounds, maybe 25 pounds. And I could feel the pressure of it where it was sitting on my chest, and I could feel where it was pressing down on my throat still. So I jump up, run down the hall to the upstairs bathroom, turn on the light. I'm looking at my neck. There's no marks. I'm like, man. And I went back to the bedroom, and my ex had woke up, and we talked about it. I don't. To be honest, I don't remember if I told her about. I don't think I did. I don't think I told her what happened. But I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. I went downstairs, and the weirdest thing about this story is, well, there's two things that came out of the story. I became a night owl after that, and Tammy can attest. Since then, and I just realized this, like a year ago?
Yeah.
That ever since I saw this thing, I prefer to sleep during the day. I'm a night person. And I think it's because of this thing. It's more comfortable for me to sleep during the day, even to this day. I've been working for 35 plus years. Even when I was in the military, I preferred night duty. I just liked being up at night. I just didn't like sleeping at night. I still don't. Sometimes I do because of Tammy's schedule, but I don't like sleeping at night because of this thing. And the other thing was, about 10 years later, I was driving a truck after I got out of the military. It might have been about 11 years later. And I'm listening to this. Of course, I'm driving at night because that's what I like to do. I'd rather drive at night. So I'm driving my truck. I'm not going to say what company it was for. But anyway, I'm listening to Coast AM with George Norrie, but it's not with George Norrie. It was called the Art Bell Show back then, with Art Bell.
Art Bell, yeah.
And I'm like in BFE, Nevada somewhere, and this lady's on there talking about a night hag. And I about lost control of my truck. I'm like, what did she just say? Yes, these shadowy hags people will report that they'll sit on your chest, or they'll sit in the room watching you sleep, or they'll give you nightmares. And I was like, I heard the hallelujah, because I thought to myself, vindication.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that's seen this thing, because that's exactly what it was. I don't know why it was so disfigured, but I just got this sense that it was female and that it was really old, like a crone or like a hag. And even that when it hopped away and it made that god-awful like little grunt it did, it sounded like a really old woman that had been smoking for like 1,000 years. You know what I mean? How women can get that real gravelly, ugly voice, but it's still a woman's voice. Yeah. You can still sense that feminine pitch to it. You know what I mean? Right. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what it was. And the other thing that's always haunted me about this, had I not woke up and had I passed away that night, my ex would have woke up and found me just laying there. Done. Gone. And, they would have called whatever. EMTs would have showed up. Medical examiner would have showed up. They would have said, oh, sleep apnea. He died in his sleep. Yeah. Sleep seizure. Yeah. What terrifies me to this day is how many people that have died in their sleep.
Right, that don't wake up.
That just don't wake up might have been a victim to one of these things. And if you have someone out there that's passed away, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it's something that's always been in the back of my mind, because there would have been no evidence. It didn't leave any evidence. I didn't have a mark on my throat. It would have just looked like I stopped breathing.
Yeah.
My ex was right there. She didn't see anything. She had no idea what was going on. It left no traces of it behind. She didn't hear anything, nothing. So I don't, that's always freaked me out. What about babies? SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. How many of these poor little babies are falling victim to these
night hags?
Night hags. I'm trying not to cuss. Yes, these night hags, these filthy, evil, despicable things. Yes. That are willing to attack an innocent person in their sleep. It really makes you wonder, I think that about does it. I want to thank everybody for listening. I'm going to have to calm down. This really got me upset, a lot more upset than I thought it was going to. And thank goodness Tammy was here to keep me cheered up and keep me going. Although you didn't interact with me nearly as much as I hoped.
I know. I get, like I said, I get these stories. Him and his family have told these stories for years. And like I said, I do not like scary movies. I do not like scary things. I do not like critters. I'm just that girl. So I like to keep happy thoughts. So I always go back into my head and my heart and think of cartoon characters or little folklores or something in my head that'll make me happy, where I see rainbows and unicorns when I hear these stories.
Rainbows and unicorns. Wow. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you like the show and you can review it, please give us a positive review. Give us a like if you can like us. Pass the show on. Word of mouth is a really, really good way to advertise, free advertising for the show.
Yes.
And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And
thank you for listening, everybody. Bye.